Well, as you'll probably be aware, the Supreme Court in Wellington at the end of June handed down their judgment in Attorney General versus Family First New Zealand. And the government and the Charities Board won the right to deregister Family First as a registered charity.
The Supreme Court has ruled that Family First does not qualify for charitable status. After a legal fight which lasted almost a decade, the court ruled that expressing a viewpoint was not an automatic disqualifier, but that charities must genuinely seek to educate rather than to solely advocate for a political position.
Now, in our view, this decision was a sad day for the freedom of speech and belief in New Zealand, and it sets a disturbing precedent. The attempt, well, some would label it a witch hunt actually, by the Charities Board to deregister Family First is a watershed decision, not just for Family First, but for the whole country. And we've produced a record of what happened so that you can fully understand what has occurred. And it includes a timeline going back to March 2010 when it all sort of began. And so we've actually fought this attempt to deregister us through 4 court cases, 2015, 2018, 2020, and this year. It's cost hundreds of thousands of dollars for both us and for the taxpayer. And our case has been a significant one because an overly restrictive or narrow view of what is in the public benefit is likely to be of concern to all charities because many of them have a certain emphasis or a point of view. But the importance of freedom of expression and open debate are ideals that every New Zealander should be defending. I've always said to opponents who publicly celebrated our demise, or what if the tables are turned and a government decides that your views are not in the public benefit? Shouldn't we all be brave and strong enough with our own arguments to allow opposing views? It also appears that certain views of marriage and family are now deemed out of bounds by the state. Now, the report also includes a wonderful commentary from board member Bruce Logan, who argues that the Supreme Court's decision to cancel our charitable status demonstrates the government's submission to the religion of diversity, inclusion and equity, now deeply embedded in New Zealand culture and law. And Bruce says that the Supreme Court has already given up on balance and neutrality by presuming cultural relativism as being the overarching reality. And then there's a commentary from a charities law expert, Sue Barker, independent lawyer, who hopes that the court decision will wake up charities and that the New Zealand legislation provides insufficient guidance as to how to determine whether a purpose is charitable, which is resulting in hundreds of thousands of taxpayer and charitable funds being spent arguing over these issues. And she argues that the issue of advocacy by charities has become particularly problematic and complex. And she says this: the Supreme Court decision in Family First has the potential to be used arbitrarily as a weapon against any charity that happens to express a view any given decision maker doesn't agree with. If Family First can be registered for engaging in the democratic process, any charity can. The misery of left-leaning charities in places such as Russia and Hong Kong provides a glimpse of the potential future for LGBTQ+ charities in New Zealand if the test for charitable status is permitted to turn on the subjective whims of officials. All it will take is a different decision maker, and it won't be long before they are coming after you. Correct. You see, if Family First is deemed to be non-charitable because of its advocacy and activity, the real question is whether the government will pursue other charities who operate in a similar fashion and do political advocacy just like us, and possibly who we've engaged with during social debates such as cannabis legalization. But they're from the left-wing side of the political discourse. Will they now be targeted? Helen Clark Foundation, the Drug Foundation, Child Poverty Action Group, Rainbow Youth, Amnesty International, and plenty more. The answer to that question, I think, will be obvious to those who understand the real agenda. The good news is that Family First is still here, will not be silenced, and will continue to represent and be a powerful voice and advocate for the thousands of families who support us. In fact, the decision will only embolden us because it reveals just how far the state is overreaching their control and power to attempt to shut down free speech and certain points of view that it doesn't like.